Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of On Air with Owen. Really excited about this discussion today. It's a little bit different compared to some of the stuff that we've been talking about, and a topic that I think a lot of people will have their standard thinking challenged on. Today, I'm joined by Jamie Beaumont. Jamie is the founder of Playter, and really looking forward to our discussion. Jamie, thanks for joining us first and foremost.
Thanks for having me.
Pleasure, absolute pleasure. How's things today? Sun's out. You must be loving life after a long weekend.
Yeah, the sun is out. Long weekend. Feeling pretty relaxed, and I think there's a good vibe going on in the office now. Now the rain's stopped. Everyone's got a bit of a rose kind of look to them after the weekend. So yeah, all is really well.
Brilliant stuff. So let's just touch on the topic that we're going to talk about. I'll get you to do a really quick intro in just a moment. But today we're going to talk about a bit about Playter, but more about the topic of a fintech that actually makes money. And I think it's a really interesting topic because any SaaS technology company is typically funded to the eyeballs, focused on growth and scale at all costs over profitability. And we're going to try and reverse that psychology and think about how you can charge your business to think about making a profit all the way through rather than the other way around, but still grow it. And I think that's an exciting topic. Before we get into that and put some context though, let's do 2 minutes. 2 minutes on Jamie. Who's Jamie? 2 minutes on Playter. Just give us a bit of context.
Brilliant. So yeah, my name is Jamie. I'm the founder of Playter. I have a big history and past within recruitment. So helped running a recruitment company. We actually acquired and merged one in the past and opened up office up in Manchester. I actually left that business in February 2019 to start an HR tech business. Where we received funding for that and then actually pivoted massively during the first lockdown to create Playter itself. I suppose, 15-second overview on Playter. We're the world's first 0% hire now, pay later finance for SMEs who use recruitment agencies so they can split the cost of those invoices over 6 months. So we've taken the buy now, pay later hype that's going on and put it into the B2B sector and specifically within businesses that are growing but using that for people growth itself. So that's me.
Fantastic. I want to know a bit more about that in a little while, but maybe we'll cover that off later. Let's dive straight into the topic first and foremost.
Cool.
So a fintech that makes money. Now that's an interesting concept in itself, isn't it?
I think so. I think there's a lot of businesses, especially fintechs, and a lot of them sit on the kind of B2C side, but generally tech businesses themselves like to blitz scale, as they call it, grow as quickly as possible at all costs. And what that generically means is that they just raise and they don't look at their bottom line. They don't figure out whether they're making revenue and eventually then those profits. So I think I'm trying to create a responsible business that can actually generate revenues and profits that can actually drive the growth of the business outside of raising equity every 6 months and then spanking it on God knows what. So I think it's something that not a lot of tech founders look into these days, whilst they're growing quite quickly. But yeah, very keen to make sure we have something that generates revenue and then those profits.
So people listening to this that will find this most relevant are likely to be those that are either founders now in early stage or thinking of doing their own thing. They might be in an individual contributor role or a VP of sales or thinking about founding their own organization with their own software or their own technology platform. What would you say to those people that are currently in that mode of assuming that they've got to go out and get a seed round of 250 grand and spend half the next 6 months focusing on that? You've clearly thought about it a very different way. What would be the thinking behind trying to encourage people to look at it the way that perhaps you have?
Yeah, so I think first of all, actually, so I was in that camp. So I was in the blitz scaling camp, and with my HR product, it was all about how many users can we get on the platform, and actually not necessarily paid users, free users. And I learned something very important there, that actually if you don't put a value onto your product, people don't value it. And therefore giving stuff out for free isn't necessarily the best thing you can do for your business, especially for your bottom line, but more importantly for the value of what people perceive you as. So I think one of the main important things to say is people go into building businesses wanting to sell. let's grow it really quickly and then we can sell. But what they don't realize is people buy businesses that are grown very well. So if you go into business, my biggest mistake was being in the camp of, hey, it's tech, so all I need to do is raise lots of money. I'll spend that money, but I'll get lots of users, and then I can sell it off to somebody. And it just doesn't. Life doesn't work like that within tech. It sometimes does, and you see the headlines, but go through the amount of businesses that don't make those headlines and die, and it's overwhelming. So if you're starting a business, the only thing that's going to help you survive outside of equity is having revenue, and you can never rely on raising money. So I would recommend to anybody that's starting any business really, but especially tech businesses, is don't just look at your tech, but look at the value of your business and then look how you actually value that value and to monetize it, and work out whether people will pay for it. Because if people won't pay for your product, I'm sorry to say that you don't have a product. You've not really thought it through. Everyone will take something for free. So just figure out whether you can monetize something and then go for it.
Do you know, there's a couple of really interesting points that you've brought up in there. One of which was, it doesn't matter how good your product is. If you run out of cash at some stage, because you can't rely on the next stage of funding coming in at the valuation that you want, in the time frame that you want, with the right amount. And if that's 2 months, 3 months, at the end of your runway, and you run out of cash, what do you do in that scenario? And it doesn't matter how good your product is, right? You're at risk all the time in that kind of a business.
Yeah, you are. And the problem is there as well is founders, you have to think of, and I'm sure you know this as well, Owen, you have to think of 15 different, you're wearing 15 different hats all in one day. And when you get sucked into crisis mode and Armageddon of where are we going to, what's the next month going to look like, you don't run your business properly. You run based on survival mode, and you're never going to actually grow your business if you're just trying to simply make it to the next month, and it absorbs your entire attention. Fundraising, we're actually fundraising now. We've done very well, and we're looking to scale. And we're not yet profitable, but we put those lines in that now we're making money, where we know how we can get there much quicker than we would have done in the past. But if you are fundraising all the time, you're not running your business. It's just a fact of life, unless you have a professional fundraiser with you. So I just think you just don't want those issues. Figure out, make sure you really hone down on what's going to be right for the business. Make some money, and then what's coming in, especially if you're a SaaS business, what's coming in. You have recurring revenue. You don't need to risk what's going to happen the next month or the month after. It's already there. So all you need to do is build on that. So I just think it's really important. Just if it's only just a little bit of money you can make, prove that you can make that money, because then if you can prove you can scale that, then you've got you've got some sort of longevity there.
Is it fair to assume, and educate me, I've never been through funding a business. I have lots of clients that do, but it's always secondhand information. Is it fair to assume that it's far easier to raise money if you've got a profitability at the end of the month or the quarter, each quarter, than if you haven't?
Yeah. If you walk into an office to see an investor, or Zoom these days, to speak to investors, a lot of them, they'll pigeon and decompartmentalize everything and pigeonhole you. Are you pre-seed? Are you pre-product? Are you prototype? Are you early revenue? Are you early traction? Wherever you are, we all know where you're looking at, and it does get easier the further along you are. If you don't need investment because you have money coming in, I guarantee you there'll be investors knocking at your door. I had an investor, they're very private, and so they'll probably kill me if I say, but I had an investor approach me the other day asking me for introduction to somebody I was connected with on LinkedIn, that they weren't looking for any sort of investment whatsoever. They were just doing very, very well. So that type of thing, if you've got a good business, then you're going to be able to get funding. If you have a business that bleeds money, why would someone want to give you their money for you to then bleed it and then dilute them as you go down the next funding route? So it is a hell of a lot easier if you've got a good business.
What would you say to somebody? So I'm going to counter argument, or play the role of the counter argument for a second. I'm guessing there's a fair logic in an assumption that if you're looking for profitability now in the short term as a startup or an early stage startup, that actually that could be at the cost of the speed of scale later, because that means potentially you're not spending as much on the things that grow the business, headcount, marketing, or sales, all those sorts of things, product development, because you're more focused on profitability now. Is that fair? Is there a different way of looking at that?
Yeah, I mean, there are lots of different viewpoints, and they do work, by the way. Not one works. I think when you have to define it, I think you need to look at revenues, not profitability, when you look at scaling your business, because as long as you have revenues coming in that you can pay for things, you might not be profitable, but you might be scaling. So you might be generating £1 million a year, but growing at £1 million headcount a year. And so you're making no profit, but you're still scaling. So I think it's important to look at the revenue, but as you slow down with your scale, or as you find new ways to monetize, you'll then start actually adding extra monetary value onto every single person that you hire, and that's where you start to see the profits. So I think there's a lot of businesses who have raised, there's a lot of successful businesses who still don't make profit. There's a lot of very successful businesses who are on their way to making profit, or make tons and hundreds of millions of pounds a year in revenue, and I don't. So I definitely can't give speeches about them. I think the important thing to note is setting the foundations for that you can actually achieve, so that there is a revenue stream, that you're not banking on, well, if we give this away for free for 2 years and then turn the tap on, everyone's just going to pay for it. Brutally, I've forgotten what the website was called, but it was a fantastic website, collated all my information on insurance, my bills, MOT, everything. And then it would just send me messages when I needed to, or by the way, you could get a similar contract at this much less. And it was amazing. And then they sent, and it was all free, and they sent an email saying, we're going to charge £5 a year for this, which is absolutely nothing. I never got around to paying for it. I looked at the email and thought, okay, that's good, but I'll do that later. 3 months later, I've got an email saying that the business was shutting down because they didn't have any more runway. They thought as soon as you sent the email, people would just flood in and pay the money. And they didn't. And if you can't prove at some point at the beginning, if you can't prove that someone's going to pay something for your product, then you have no lines of revenue. You have no way of having a sustainable business. And then you're here in WeWork, with bleeding 2 billion a quarter, whatever it is. So I don't necessarily think it's just profit. I think it's just a proof of concept with small businesses, as both the product that you've got and also the viability of the business. You can prove both of those concepts at the same time, then I think at least then you can scale.
A lot of this is about creating good habits as well, isn't it? So you talk about that example of the business. They created the habit and the expectation in people that this was free. For 2 years or however long it was free to people. It wasn't important enough to go and put on your priority list at the top, but it was something, it was a nice to have over here. But you were so ingrained in the habit of it just being there and being free that the speed of change for you to go and do it wasn't there. The appetite to do it. And I can't imagine you were an exception in that scenario.
No, well,
clearly not.
They went under. So I was in the majority, not the minority. But I also found it with my, with actually both businesses, Playter and Offer the business before, with the technology, is when we gave stuff out for free, people went, oh, thanks, definitely, I'll take that. But they never actually utilized it. They never actually put any time and effort into using it. And of course, with technology, a lot of it is if you don't put time in, you don't get any value out. And as soon as you put something monetary on there, let's say you have 1,000 users and you say, listen, I'm going to charge you £50 a month. You go down to having 100 users. But you then have, I don't know, £5,000 a month that you're generating from those 100 users instead of nothing from the 1,000. And you learn a lot from those 100 users who are saying, I will pay for this because of this, but I won't pay any more because of this. And then you can start to build.
Yeah. Okay. So let's think. I'm a founder. I'm building my tech now, bootstrapping it, whatever. I'm trying to get to that phase of being able to go and create some revenue. What's a sensible expectation for me to be thinking about the shortest term achievable profit point? So chances are I've invested in the technology, so I'm going to be at a loss straight away. I'm going to need to invest in some headcount to get it going, something to sell it, maybe an office space, got to get my website up, some basic marketing, whatever it is to get it started. I can't expect month 1, quarter 1 to be turning a profit. When's the earliest point with any reasonable scale of growth? Obviously you can do it if you're not spending any money, but
I think if you're being reasonable, it takes a couple of years. the investment into tech is huge, and it's also non-stop. I think lots of people think, right, when I build the product, I'm done. It never works that way. Any businesses who sit there on the product that they've got without actually improving it and augmenting the value that's within it will find itself pretty redundant at some point. So I think realistically a couple of years. Some take longer, some take less, but I think it's unrealistic to have a huge amount of investment into technology, people, growth, and then suggest that a year. Most businesses, whatever you're in, don't make profit in the first year anyway.
Yeah.
Most of them don't make profit in the second year. So technology companies, it'd be interesting to see if anyone's got actual research on people like Bohurst, for instance, research on this. I'd probably say the average must be between 3 and 4 years. If you're a tech business. But again, is that because they're B2C and they're driving users, and therefore when they can charge £1 a month after that and they've got 1 million users, in which case they're sorted? Or is it B2B? That I think B2C is easier to bleed cash long term because there's more people. B2B, I think it's really important to actually make money. I think if you can't make money in B2B, then your business isn't going to survive.
Yeah, interesting. So what we're talking about here is that mindset as a founder of what you want to be, how you want to identify with your business, how you want to be seen, and what's important to you. So it's almost like you've got two options. Do I just throw profitability to the side, not worry about it whatsoever, and so long as my scale is going in the right direction at a speed that's acceptable to me, profitability doesn't matter? And I've said to you before that the story of a founder of a tech firm who said to me, the moment profitability becomes a metric I care about is after I've sold the business, which is a really interesting concept. I'm just trying to get my head around this logic of how you would choose which route you want to go down. So, okay, I've got my seed round. I know that I might want to fundraise again in a year's time. I can go down the route of, actually, I'm going to focus on trying to get to that profitability point as soon as possible, because that, we've said, makes fundraising easier and it shows I can make money and give a return to investors. Or I'm going to go down the route of scale as fast as I can, profitability coming later. It might be a 5, 6, 7 year journey to that profitability point. A bigger gamble, I would imagine. Just like, what would be the factors to consider on which of those settings feels more right for you as a founder?
I think so, whether it's B2B or B2C, the ticket value of your product as well. It all, I mean, my biggest thing is product market fit, and that proof of concept. If you've got a product and you go, right, I'm going to scale this, and as we know, sales is secular. It just goes round and round and round and round and round. The more you do it, the better you become at it, and the more fluid your process becomes. And the same happens in your sales process. When you're a founder, you're new at selling your product. You're very good at it because you're the founder. You should be. But if you're unable to sell it to 10 people quickly, then you're not going to be able to sell it to 1,000 people even quicker. And so you need to iron out the kinks that happen along the road. And I just think when you've got product market fit, when you've really proved that the concept of your product works, that you've proved the cycle and the process, and then you've found product market fit where people are coming to you and it's just easy to sell, that's time when you can actually say, well, actually profitability doesn't matter right now, because we've shown that we can, we can pretty much chuck money behind this. We have the metrics. VCs love metrics. What's your cost per acquisition, your LTV, and all the different types of metrics. If you can prove that, well, if I give you £1 million, you'll deliver me 10. I don't care. Go out. Here's £1 million. Screw profit and just go for it, because I know you're going to give me £10 million in revenue. I think enterprise products are traditionally quite difficult to do that with, because the lead time on the sales cycle can be a year. And so if your runway for a business is 12 to 18 months and you're going, oh crap, I mean, we're relying on that deal coming through, then again that would be one of the factors. So I think there's probably 10 or 15 different factors that you'd look at when you're building the business. I think one of the things that I've had to get over is when you number one, entrepreneurs become this very kind of fashionable catwalk word that people want to use, by, oh yeah, I'm an entrepreneur, I've got my own business. As you all know, when you first start your business, it sucks. it's not an easy thing to do. It's not, you don't suddenly get loads of free time. If you want to leave your job, become an entrepreneur to get work-life balance, then it's very counterproductive because you have no balance whatsoever. It's your whole entire life. And so it's this fashionable mantra that people have been going on about of raise. And I think WeWork and all of that, have given it that, which is basically raise or die. When it should be okay that, raising is fine, by the way. There's nothing wrong with raising money. I do that. Lots of other, as you said, tech founders have done it. And bootstrapping as well is fine. Those who don't do it. But I think those who bootstrap generally have a better head on their shoulders when it comes to the economics of the business and how they grow it. And actually the best funding rounds I've seen have come from bootstrap founders who are just desperate to take in equity, so find every way to make money, and move those metrics out of the way and just go, we'll get there in the end.
It's interesting again because that's creating good habits, isn't it? They've got to the point where they feel they have to demonstrate the value in it by creating revenue streams. That creates good habits, that rolls, and you got snowball effect where suddenly they're more fundable than they thought they would be because they've worked hard on something that matters more than something that potentially doesn't, which is, like you say, the vanity metrics of not just revenue, but number of users for free, or number of website visits, or brand awareness metrics, or whatever that might be, that are great, but actually investors, they're a byproduct of what they really want, which is the proof that it can work commercially.
Yeah, exactly. I was actually on a podcast the other day with the founder of Payhawk. And it was really interesting listening to him. They just closed a $20 million round. And he was basically saying how difficult their seed round was to close, which I can empathize with. And it took ages to find people who wanted to invest, and you go through tons and tons of different VCs, and they all reject you until you find one or potentially a few angels who come in. And then he started making lots of money. His business was pretty, cash rich, and they were quite flush. They didn't, they had lots in the bank. They didn't need to raise. And he saw an opportunity, as we were just saying, it's working. They've managed how to figure out how to make money and scale it. And so when they went to raise money, it was an idea given to him. We should raise and scale really quickly. It happened within a few weeks. I mean, 0 to 20 million in the bank in a few weeks. And that's because he had a business that made money, a business where they'd gone through the tough part and they'd spent time on making sure that the process worked, that the product worked. And now they can raise 20 million quid and, off into the distance, and God knows what valuation that was at. They're a 100 million plus valuation business now, almost certainly. So I think that's just the proof's in the pudding. Listening to him, it was really, if you really pay attention, if you don't get sucked in by this whole entrepreneur catwalk of, I'm going to have £1 billion, I'm going to be a unicorn, and I'm going to raise lots of money, and I'm not going to make any money doing it. You'll be, only 1 in a million, survive.
That's the key thing here, isn't it? That we hear about the outreaches, raising 100 million at a valuation of $1 billion and that sort of stuff. But for every startup, for every organization that does that, there's probably another 1,000 plus who don't do that. And it's very easy to assume that you have to go and be that because that's what we hear about and that's what we see. But there are more businesses getting seed rounds of 100 grand and, Series A of 250 and Series B of 800 grand, and who are now turning over 2, 3, 4 million pounds with a reasonable valuation. And those founders will do well for themselves, and their product is good and it's got good product market fit and all that sort of stuff. But they might not be outreach, but that's okay. We don't all have to be the outreach. And I think just reminding people that we can't all be a Messi or a Ronaldo or a Henry Slade or whoever it is. Sometimes we have to accept that our product is in a niche market, or that our business experience is limited, and maybe aim for something that's sensible. If you go beyond it, bonus.
Actually, it's a really good point. Actually, that when you go to a VC, they how are you going to 100x or 1,000x my investment?
Yeah.
And you think, I have no clue. You give me £1 billion, I don't know how I'm going to give you £100 million back. If I'm giving you £100 million back, I'm going to be sorted. So great, that all sounds fantastic, but I don't know how we're going to do it. And I think there's actually a lost interest in, and they look at markets, the total addressable market, and that's it. How big's your market? How many billions or even trillions is that market? I think there's a really undervalued business owner that knows exactly what their market is, that knows how to fix a problem in that market, and that market is only 1 billion. And they can go in and they can, they're not gonna raise VC, because VCs will look down at them because their market is only worth 1 billion. But if they really know, if their product is great and they know what they're doing, they're going to be able to scale in that market by themselves. And they'll, like you said, the business might turn over £5-6 million a year. There might be 20 of them. Everyone earns good money. They all have a very, very good life. I don't know where that mindset has gone, where if I build a very good business, everyone wants the exit. Everyone wants the multi-million, we're talking not 7, but probably 8, 9-figure exits. That's what we're looking at. How can I make £100 million? I'm sorry, but, look at the Forbes rich list.
Yeah.
You've not got, every man and his dog who's decided to set up a tech company in there because they've gone and sold for 100 million quid. It just doesn't work like that. So I think you're right. You could be smaller, but just knowing exactly what you're doing.
And I think sometimes about it's funny that I was I don't know if you watched this at all, but I was watching Have I Got News for You, and one of the jokes on there was about how somebody at UCL had researched and found the definition, the formula for happiness, and it turned out, and they'd done loads of research on it, that the formula in layman's terms meant lower your expectations. So it literally meant that. So actually, if your expectations, and they go back to the level of happiness in 100 years ago, was so much higher because their expectations were that I live past 40, that I don't get, I don't get a disease, or I don't get cancer that can't be cured, or whatever, that I might get a job and earn some money, I might be able to feed my family, whatever those things are. On average, I'm being a bit throwaway there. But therefore, anything but it was easier to be happy. Whereas nowadays, I think as a society, our expectations are so high, and we hear about that with millennials. And I'm just a millennial, but we hear about that sort of stuff all the time, where we're almost brought up to expect that we're going to be that superstar. Because we're so exposed to that. We want to be this, we want to be that, and then anything underneath that is a disappointment. Hey, if you just said to most people at the beginning of a founding journey, you're going to sell out for £5 million, and that sorts you for the rest of your life, you're comfortable, you're happy, I bet you most people would have taken that, but there's something along the journey that changes that mindset. I don't know what it is. I suppose it's just sheer ambition.
It's ambition, the ideology of being the person in front of, I think it's because when the founder community, it's quite small, actually. I'm amazed at how many people I've met who know people that I've met, and you kind of connect the dots. So I mean, if you look at, I think one of the best ways to look at it is, we've all come from, a lot of people who've been watching this, and yourself, myself, all come from sales backgrounds. We know what a sales floor looks like. And if you separate that sales floor into high performers, kind of steady eddies and low performers, 90% aren't high performers. It just like the businesses don't work that way. And so you can't expect that to happen in society when it comes to founding business as well, where every business that's founded, 90% of them go on to be unicorns. It just it doesn't work that way. And I think if you can, there's this business of do I really want to sell out 5 million? I could sell out for 50 million in 2 years' time. So what you also could go under, and there could be a lot worse things happening. So I think people's, as you said, expectations now are set on. I heard somebody the other day suggesting that your new ambition is to do what Ben Francis did with Gymshark, and is to raise and you are worth what 1.08 billion, and it's like, well, and the Hocken guy as well, and you just think, I mean, these are two of the most exciting businesses in the world. You can't go into a race thinking everyone's going to be Usain Bolt. Like, it just doesn't work that way. And so you're absolutely right. It's not even lowering your expectations. If you said to 99.9% in this country, I'll give you £5 million for 5 years hard work, and you get paid along the way, probably. People would
take it.
I mean, they'd bite your hand off. And so I don't know where it is in that journey. Again, it'd be interesting to see why people lose perspective in that way. But in that founding journey, it goes from 5 million, the holy grail. Oh my God, if I could build a business and sell for, don't forget, you'll probably sold it for 10 million if you've taken 5 million. To what am I going to buy with 5 million? I can't even afford the house that I've been looking at anymore. And it's like,
where did that come from?
Where did it come from?
High at the moment, but not that high.
So I think it's just being, again, I think people who lose themselves also lose themselves in the business model. I want 100 million, and therefore I need 100 million users. And how am I going to get there?
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? And I think that a lot of this comes down to identifying with yourself and knowing who you are and what you went into it for. Like you said, ignoring I saw the flashing lights, the outreach and the sales loft and all those guys that are, the hop-ins, like you said, but also acknowledging that if Ben Francis had gone and done Gymshark on another day in another way, he wouldn't have done what he did. There's an element of people being very good. There's also an element of right time, right place, bit of luck, right decision on a day where the decision could have gone the other way. These little things that make such a difference. And you can't roll that out over and over again. More fail than succeed for a reason, because if it was easy, everyone would be doing it, and it really isn't.
Yeah, I think there's an assumption, there's a formula on how to create a good business, and I think there definitely is a way of building a better business. But I think lots of people do forget. There's inside that recipe, there's sacrifice, there is timing, there's luck. There's like a hell of a lot of luck. There's learnings, there's external environmental issues like COVID. You look at a lot of people, COVID's been horrendous. I pivoted in COVID to something that's actually been better for us. Had COVID not happened, Playter Pay, I can tell you now, probably wouldn't be here. So it's not a one size fits all. It's if it's going well, congratulations, you've worked hard. There's some luck. You've got to admit all of these different things. But at the same time, I think you can't expect to copy somebody else and it work. It's like traders who copy other people's trades and then lose all their money.
So true. And do you know what's interesting here is, as a founder, you make probably hundreds of decisions every day. And I mean that literally, not because you're sitting there and you got to do this or this, but because by choosing not to address something, not to do something, not to see, you're making a decision to do nothing. And that's all we do, is we make decisions. We could go and change something in our business just like that because we decide it's the right thing to do, and it might come out of nowhere. Equally, we could leave things status quo for way too long on something, and we're making a decision every single day not to change it. And it can be one of those decisions that wins a big contract that you then leverage, and you've got a case study and all the rest of it, or that means that you don't and you're not in the game. And that could be somewhere completely different in the business, going to a networking event. I won't go today. I happen to be where I'd have met that person. It could be, actually, I'm going to reduce the PPC budget this month because we're a bit cash tight and I need to make sure we can pay wages. And maybe that the person searching at the end of the week or the end of the month is now above and beyond your budget. And it's little things you don't think about that just have this effect, and you will never call it. It's about doing more right than wrong. And if we do more right than wrong, we go in the right direction. There is no one out there doing everything right. It's just not possible.
It's not. I got my first funding from an email that I forgot to take someone off the list. I've got a meeting later on with someone who I swear I took off the list. And they came back and they were like, "Great, we'd love to meet." And it's like, "Oh, Jesus, okay."
I don't remember.
And I think as heads of sales, marketing, founders, every day, like you said, you make 100 different decisions, but each decision that you make is either sink or swim. Essentially, you could do something that could kill the entire business. It's so much pressure, and I think it's amazing. It's incredible, and I'm in awe of so many founders and VP of sales. How much pressure on a scaling business these guys and girls have on their head is mental. So I have so much respect for seeing people do that. But there are decisions, and I think the only thing that separates the successful from the unsuccessful in that regard is just action. Is probably understanding action. You either take it or you don't. And like you said, you might not take action, but you've chosen not to take action, and you've chosen to take action. And the people that just do that, I think, just get on with it. And
I love it. We've ended up talking about entrepreneurship and being a founder and all the habits, and I think all of this is so well linked. Let's just go circle back to finish off to that topic. So let's just maybe surmise some of your thoughts from our discussions today. I'm a founder. I'm about to launch. My initial thought process is, don't worry about profit, scale, big funding, going to need to fundraise every 9 to 12 months. It's going to be a full-time job, probably for 6 months to do that. But that's the model. And then I grow revenue at pace, worry about profitability 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years down the road. That's one way of doing it. And we all see that way because that's how the way that the big guys do it. What you're saying is there's another way. Maybe if you could just surmise your ideas and your thoughts as to how that could work, so that somebody thinking about it can really just sit on that and think about why that might be a better fit for them.
Yeah, I think if you want to be part of your business for longer, then being able to generate revenue streams means you hold on to more of the business. So if you're a founder that understands the market incredibly well, so you might, like myself, you might have been in your market for 5-10 years beforehand. Therefore, you understand it back to front, and you know the issues, and you go in there and you can use your market to actually speak to people, and your kind of black book to start off your business. I spoke to so many people saying 50% of businesses who earn over $1 million do so using their network at the start. And so I think if you're a founder in that position, I think looking at it saying, how can I build a business that is actually sustainable over the long-term period? If you can, figure out if you're going to raise in COVID, if you're going to start in COVID, all hell's broken loose, and you can create a product that generates revenues, not necessarily profits, but revenues for you to continue to scale with as you go. You can keep hold of, and the market, and the product market fit because of that. I think it's a different avenue for you to go down to, and it's harder for B2C companies to do that. But if you're a B2B company, I think it's incredibly important. So I think when you're starting a business, just be very wary of the two routes. They're not fashionable, and they don't mean you as a person are slightly different to another. Just figure out what one you're most comfortable with, because I think as founders, you are comfortably uncomfortable every single day. And if you can make that as bearable as you possibly can, because you believe in your commercial outfit that you've set up, you believe in your models, you believe in your product and the value that it offers, go for that one. It doesn't matter which one it is, but just go with your gut, what makes you feel comfortable. Because when you start going to people and they tell you your product's rubbish and they don't want to use it, and you're going to have to stick to your guns. And know for a fact that you are right, or at least you're on the right path. I'd say just make sure you think very, very carefully.
Brilliant, good stuff. And it's that time of the day where you get to give a bit of a plug out to Playter Pay. Oh, that was a bit of a rhyme there as well. Playter Pay. I didn't even set that one up. So just for our listeners, who should be looking at your business? Who should be talking to you? Who can utilize the offering? Why would they do that? And what do they do if they want to?
Yeah, so we work with SMEs who hire using recruitment agencies, and we allow you to spread the cost over 6 months for 0%, which basically means you're a fool if you're hiring through recruiters without us. As we genuinely help cash flow for businesses. We help you invest in different areas whilst you're growing without the huge burn of paying for recruitment fees up front. So if you are a business that's hiring 1 or 100 this year, honestly, approach us. We've got a solution that genuinely helps. We're being used by bricks and mortar businesses to seed Series A, Series B businesses with lots of cash who cash flow is important. So if it is, come to us. We'll be able to help out.
So any recruitment company, any sector, doesn't matter.
So the actual businesses themselves, so not the recruitment agencies, they obviously can help businesses and their own clients.
Sorry, but if they're using you can fund through any agency. It doesn't matter what recruitment agency, they don't
absolutely
have to do or
So regardless who you're with, we have a fantastic network of accredited suppliers that we can put you in touch with, and we offer a huge amount of support underneath with whether it's job specs, interview process management, introductions. We can do all of that as well as splitting the cost, and we make an insurance policy on every hire over 12 weeks as well. So we just do a tremendous amount to help smaller businesses grow without having to sacrifice the cash that they've got in the pot at that time. Nice.
And did I hear 0%?
0.
How on earth does that work? That's exceptional. Like you say, it's silly not to.
Yeah, I don't like profit. listen, the lending that we use is, I talked about figure out whether you can have any other values to your product. We have two sides to our business. We have lending, and we also have a huge amount of support, and the actual split finance and the insurance side of that. So we have support fees that we make from SMEs, and we obviously have support fees that we get from recruiters as well. So we're able to offer introductions, huge amount of support to the entire unity, so that we can make it 0%. And it just means that we're more than happy to swallow that. If we're helping businesses grow, and as obviously as businesses grow, then we'll make better relationships with that. So it's one of those things where someone asked me, is it actually real? Because if it is, we've just had a Series A business come on board. They said it's ridiculous, why wouldn't we do this? So they've just signed up for the year. So yeah, if you are any business hiring through recruitment agencies, you want to split the cost for 0%, come give me a shout.
Why wouldn't you? Love that. Absolutely love that. And happy for people to get in touch with you directly. And if so, how can they do that? What's the best way to get in touch with you?
So you can get me at jamie@playter.co, or I'm incredibly obnoxious over LinkedIn with lots of postings. So please just send an invite over, send a message, and it'd be awesome to chat.
Sounds good. Jamie, thank you so much. Really enjoyed the conversation. As always, learning from your content on LinkedIn, and also learning from our discussion today. A really interesting insight into the world of being a fintech founder. Thank you ever so much for your contribution to On Air, and thanks for being with us today.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Cheers.